We now move over to Europe for our next story, where the United Nations Security Council is set to hold an emergency meeting at Poland's request after Russian drones violated Polish airspace. Poland, supported by its NATO allies, recently shot down the drones on Wednesday, marking the first instance of a NATO member firing at Russian unmanned aircraft during the Ukraine conflict began. Additional measures along the eastern border with Belarus and Ukraine have also been put in place, including limitations on small aircraft. Poland's president described the incident as a test by Russia to gauge Warsaw and NATO's response, stressing the need for global attention to the situation. Let's listen in to what he said.
Gotowi. Ta rosyjska prowokacja, jak panowie generałowie i nasi żołnierze doskonale zdają sobie sprawę, była niczym więcej tylko próbą testowania naszych zdolności. Zdolności, że podziękować, bo wszystkie te testy zdaliśmy. I test polityczny, i test partnerski w ramach Sojuszu Północnoatlantyckiego, wykonując od nocy swoje zadania dyplomatyczne, a przede wszystkim test wojskowy, waszej gotowości do tego, aby na rosyjską prowokację zareagować. Dlatego
In response, Polish authorities have imposed strict airspace restrictions until December the 9th. General aviation can fly during the day with radios and transponders, but night flights are now banned. Commercial aircraft can fly above 3 kilometers, while civilian drones are completely prohibited. Only military and unidentifiable civilian flights following a flight plan are now permitted. Okay, we have a related development coming up where NATO's Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, Alexis said today that the alliance does not know yet whether the Russian drones violated Poland's airspace intentionally. Let's listen in to his comments.
We do not yet know if this was an intentional act or an unintentional act. And I would also have low confidence in any numbers that you've heard of the number of drones. These are the number of sensors that we have, overlapping tracks. As we try to account for that and go into the technical details, we'll get a better understanding of how many there were. But I would not be able to tell you with any confidence today that it was 20 or that it was 10. We just have to get into the technical details to just figure that out, to debrief the crews that were up, see what they saw, etc.
We are now joined by Mark Sutherland. He is a geopolitical commentator and he joins us live from London to discuss this developing situation. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. It's been over 24 hours since this has happened, Mark. It was 19 encroachments into Polish airspace that were reported from Russian drones. There you hear that people are saying that it has not confirmed whether the cross was intentional. What have you made of the response by Poland and its allies since this event has occurred?
Good to join you again, Thomas.
Pleasure.
As your report has quite rightly said, the NATO are turning around and going, we wait for figures, we wait to be able to actually have conversations with our crews, with our pilots that have been up in the air to find out how many had incurred. Also, as you quite rightly pointed out in regard to the reports, whether is this Russia, was this deliberate, to then do a stress test on NATO, find out what their response is going to be. And also, as Poland has said, they then said we need Article 4. We need to have a discussion about this incursion, and as you rightly said, because of the border with Russia, and then there is a much history to then discuss in regard to the Second World War and in regard to moving of borders. And it's not surprising that people get twitchy. It's not surprising that people are twitchy with the fact that this theatre, sadly, this theatre of war that you and I have discussed over a number of weeks is continuing. Was it deliberate? Was it a mistake? That is what is to play out. Plus, we've seen what's happened in Alaska, and Putin, he needs to come to the table and discuss stopping this. And that's the deep frustration, because suddenly these kinds of actions then say, is he stress testing? Is he actually provoking us? what is actually going on. And Thomas, in many ways, through all the chatter, through all the reports that's going on there, it at times is very hard to give an instant answer, as that the NATO leader said. I need to have time to debrief my pilots and staff. Thomas.
Yes, Mark. Well, we do have a Russian response where Russia has dismissed Polish and Western statements about its drones entering Polish airspace, calling them nothing new and saying it will make no further comment on the incident. As per latest statements given by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, the Russian Defense Ministry has already issued a statement and there was nothing more to add. He also noted that consultations were offered if necessary, but Moscow would not respond to new allegations. Responding to Western claims that Russia intended to stoke tensions, Peskov said Warsaw's rhetoric reflects a pattern seen across most European capitals recently. Mark, what are your thoughts on this? Russia has dismissed both Polish and Western statements about this situation. He's called them nothing new and has offered no more on the incident. How do you think the Kremlin is feeling about the response that NATO and, of course, Europe as a whole is giving about this incident?
If you go through sort of press releases and, as people would call it, the propaganda on the Russian side, this kind of reaction is nothing new at all. If they have deliberately gone into Polish airspace, we'll just leave it like that. If that is then proven, no, they are not going to say anything. What is sad, Thomas, as you and I have discussed before, is a few weeks ago there was a meeting of Ukrainian officials and Russian officials in Turkey, 45-minute meeting to discuss the prisoner swaps. Since then, there is this effort to actually get them to the table. There seems a resistance, as we are seeing constant drone strikes, say on both sides, that are going on. We need them round the table. We need a stopping of the war. We need a peace deal. We need an ending to this. With Russia has lost a million men. Ukraine has lost hundreds of thousands of men as well, let alone all the devastation in Ukraine, etc. So we need them to come to the table. Russia may then decide we'll send some more drones. How serious is Europe in responding to us? How united is NATO? How united are all the other countries that are then part of NATO? And just finally on this point, history, as I say, history is not destined to repeat itself, but it rhymes, which is that classic phrase. But the problem is that this is what people are then looking at. We are then looking at in regard to Russian behavior. We go back to the Second World War, we go back to the Cold War. It's not surprising that people then have those feelings and this particular reaction, especially with the history of Poland and what they then went through the Second World War. As I say, we're involving human lives. We need people to come to the table and stop this as soon as possible. Thomas.
Yes, Mark, do stay with us. We have some updates coming from Britain, where